Astringent. Yes, its main properties are tannins. Now with tannins, you've got hydrolyzable tannins and condensed tannins. You've also got things called pseudotannins, which we don't get too excited about just yet. And I should know this, the leaves have got both hydrolyzable and condensed tannins in them. Bark has only hydrolyzable tannins. Hopefully tomorrow we might get a chance to test some of this and do some tests on them. But witch hazel is most commonly used externally. And what would you use externally? What would you use it for externally? Anyone? Any ideas?
Varicose veins.
Yeah, varicose veins, bruises, even sprains. Eye infections. Except when you're using it for eye infections, you want the distilled water, which has actually not got the tannins in it, because your eyes are made out of protein. So you wouldn't want to put tannins onto your eyes full of protein, because that proteins and tannins essentially bind together. You know, and you've got a normal. You have a cup of tea which is fairly see-through, translucent if you were to hold it up. As soon as you pour the milk in, it goes all cloudy and opaque, because that's basically the proteins in the milk binding with the tannins, which you wouldn't want to do to your eyes. But otherwise, mainly treatment of varicose veins and piles. Absolutely brilliant. Also, you can use it, as to tighten the skin around your eyes if you've got baggy eyes. You all know lots about nettles. I'm sure your common stinging nettle, which is Urtica dioica. That's the scientific name. Do you remember Richard talk about scientific names and saying that we should call them scientific rather than Latin because some of them are Greek? So I'm going to try and stick with the scientific name. Harvesting things that are quite low growing, then I wouldn't want to harvest that right down on the ground. I'd harvest enough above the ground so that if it's been raining and muck splashed up on them, you don't want to have to get that muck. So even if, say, you were harvesting, for instance, not that you do it this time of year, but witch hazel leaves, I'm not going to harvest those leaves down there because they're more likely to have been either weed on or had soil splashed up on them from the rain. Because with medicines, you want to have everything, every organic, well-crafted preparation of medicine is going to have some rubbish in it, because you can't stand over something and make sure not a single insect touches it or something. But if you want to minimise that, so pick things higher up off the ground so you don't have to do the work by washing anything off. So that's about harvesting nettles. Obviously the roots, you would harvest them. This time of year is great to harvest roots, by the way, so from now onwards really. The roots are used for the treatment of enlarged prostates.
What's the nettle?
The nettle root. And the leaves are used for many things. One of them is for the treatment of people who are very atopic, who are very allergic. So if you get people who suffer from allergies, hay fever, asthma, they can help to desensitise people to their environment. They're also extremely high in iron. They taste delicious. You can make all sorts, anything you would use spinach for, you can use nettles for. With the high amount of iron in them, they're very good for nursing mothers. They also worked as a galactagogue, so they increase milk production. And yes, they're also ulcerative. They're also in the whole blood cleanser, which is slightly dodgy, but they're in that class.
What's the best time to make nettle soup?
The best time to make nettle soup is any time that they've started growing until about June. Much after that, they're really, really fibrous. They're one of the plants that's used for natural cordage. So you can actually get your nettle and beat it, and rub it in your hands, and you end up just with loads of fibres that you could then roll together and make string from. In fact, yeah, absolutely used to be used for rope. And nowadays you can get like bamboo clothing. You can get nettle clothing as well. And there was something else I was going to say about nettles. Oh, about the tea. Sorry?
Hair,
yes, absolutely. It can be used as a hair wash for strengthening hair. Very much so. And
does that stop hair falling out?
Well, it's a difficult one. It depends why your hair is falling out.
Okay.
For instance, a lot of people post childbirth say that, or post after once they've finished breastfeeding their child, say, "Oh, my hair's all falling out." Very often during pregnancy and breastfeeding, your hair doesn't fall out anywhere near as much as it did in normal time, as it did before you were pregnant.
So you suddenly become aware of it.
So you suddenly become aware of it because you've got loads more hair that's actually coming out, but it's only because it didn't come out, hasn't been able to fall out very much in the last year or two. So you can feel like your hair's gone from being quite thick to being extremely thin. Although in some women with the breastfeeding, you get so depleted of everything, you can end up with much thinner hair, and hormones change, and sometimes people say that that's, you know, you see women who have got very little hair, and often it's happened around the same time as children, but normally, physiologically, it's very normal for most women to feel that their hair's falling out a lot after childbirth and breastfeeding.
What about things like arthritis?
Arthritis, the use of nettles from arthritis was actually topically, and that was if you've got a cold inflammation where you want the blood to be in the air and you want the blood to get moving. The idea of, was it flagellating yourself, whipping yourself with nettles, was actually quite a good idea because it did get all the blood moving. But I can think of better ways. Mustard rub. Spread round to the side to see it. It's quite noticeable. It's kind of completely day glow orange. Is Exculsia californica, which is the Californian poppy. It's absolutely fabulous herb. It's really good to aid sleep. And it's also really beautiful to have in your garden. And it's lovely because it flowers for ages and ages and ages. I mean, most things have kind of stopped flowering by now, but the poppy's kind of, and it grows anywhere. It likes really unpleasant kind of, you know, what do you call it? Depleted soil. Yeah. And it's the most amazing colour.
And would you again use the flowers?
Yeah, you use the flowers and the poppy heads themselves. Some preparations use the leaves as well, the whole lot.
You mean the poppy heads with the seeds inside?
Yes.
As a tincture?
As a tincture. But I think generally it's harvested when it's in about this state where you've got the seeds as well as, because that's the seed heads, as well as the flowers.
So you say the seed when the flower has dropped off, you use the seed.
Yellowfolium, which is a very, very, very common plant in the British Isles, and is used in pretty much every preparation for hypertension, as well as a vast majority of gynecological problems.
Did you say Achillea millefolium?
Yeah, Achillea millefolium, or yarrow. And it grows pretty much everywhere, and you harvest it whilst it's in flower. Talking about herbal medicines and how they're harvested, you've got roots, which is radix, you've got bark, which is cortex, you've then got aerial parts, or the Latin name of that is herba. And when you're talking about aerial parts, it means everything above the ground. Again, due to contamination with earth and soil, you always want to take it as far above the ground as you can in many ways, but essentially it means from ground level up. And when something's from ground level up, it nearly always includes the flowers. You know, it's nearly always harvested when in flower, if that's the case.